Hi, welcome to Cliterally Speaking the Podcast. I'm Michelle Doherty.
And I'm Emily Lane.
We are BFFs dedicated to bringing you conversations between girlfriends over a bottle of wine.
Oh, I am so excited about the wine part.
Oh, me too. So pull up a chair, grab your glass,
and let's get talking.
Hello. Emily Lane, how are you tonight?
Oh, you know what? I am feeling much better.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You've been sick for a while.
I know. I have a voice again. Hallelujah.
I know. I don't have to carry
Right.
everything and do all the talking.
Right.
Oh, poor me.
Right. I can drink now.
I don't have to drink all the wine either.
Yes.
Oh man. Poor me. Are you sure you're feeling okay?
I am ready for this. I am so excited to be here.
You've been medicating yourself for the last 7 days, laying in bed, getting everything feeling better. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because, as much as I don't mind talking by myself for 45, 50 minutes, I find myself quite fascinating.
Right.
And drinking all the wine myself, it is nice to have you back.
A partner back in action. Yeah, that's right.
My liver thanks you. Anyway, it's lovely to be back in the studio and nice to see you and healthy and well. And today we have a super special guest.
I know. We are very...
Pinch me, please.
I know. We're very excited. Oh, well, this is important on a lot of levels. Yes.
But, go ahead, introduce.
Okay, so many of our friends that listen to our show here, we've talked about how Michelle and I met.
Right.
We met on this amazing movie set.
Yes, where we did reestablish the bar for extras.
That's right.
We raised it. So now everybody looks at us and there's workshops on it, like how to be an extra.
That's right.
Look at Emily and Michelle.
Right. Yeah.
On this movie called Parallel Chords.
Yes. So today we have our friend Catherine Dudley-Rose here, the writer, director, creative, the everything behind this amazing film. So here she is, joining us.
Yay for all of us.
Yeah, we're so
you
excited.
were the best extras.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, now whenever you do any future projects, you'll be like, oh man, if I can't get Michelle and Emily, I don't know what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
But also, weren't you downstairs when I came down and I was like, okay, you guys, I was already working with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most important part of the whole thing. You have to have that background quality that's real, you know?
Yeah.
And you just popped in with your...
With my right. Well, you said come dress for the theater, so that's exactly what I did. And it was my birthday, so I had to be
Thank you for doing that on your birthday.
Well,
I really do appreciate that. It's a big deal.
That's now a day that will be documented forever because it's a part of this film. So
I need to
pretty
find
cool.
all of those other extras too, though, because the list was a little scattered. And there's lots of. I see a picture of it. I'm like, who is that? I need to find them.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
You had some, when we were talking to the people that were among the crowd, a lot of those extras were, that's what they do.
Oh, I did plenty of that in New York.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and in New York, you get to the point where you become a featured extra because they know that they've seen your work on stage. The casting directors have seen you. You've worked for them, too. And then, she can be next to the star, and she won't screw it up or, bother them too much. So
I had no idea that was that.
She won't ask them to be on their podcast.
You never know. They might say yes.
Hey, guess what? I got a podcast. Here's my card. Okay. Yeah, that'll happen now.
It could happen.
Definitely. Yes. Well, to mark this occasion, we have a delicious wine that we're drinking that perhaps we should tell everybody about.
Yes, let's talk about our wonderful wine here.
Well, Michelle, once again, congratulations to you.
I'm just making this almost 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I have provided the wine.
She has provided the wine and did a wonderful job once again. So we're going back to France here for this wine, which of course is my favorite region to go to for delicious wine. This is a Pinot Noir made by the Maison Louis Latour. It's a 2015. It's Domaine de Valmoisine. It is... I think it's quite lovely. I had no idea what to expect, but as we just opened it up here, You know, I found
I did
that,
tell her how much it cost, so she knew it wasn't like what I usually drink at home. So she was like, it's going to be okay for the podcast.
We're in good shape here. Yeah. No, this is neat. On the nose, it's got a little bit of that funk that I always kind of find exciting. I definitely get some
She likes that in her wine, not in her men.
Well, I like men who can dance a little funky.
But you don't like the funk on your men.
That's definitely true.
Only in her wine. We had to clarify things on Cliterally Speaking the Podcast.
Absolutely.
But I think this is quite delicious. I get cherry, I get licorice, I get cassis. It's beautiful ruby color. What do you ladies think? Pause as we all sip.
I think I have to have it all.
We will share. We will definitely share.
That's kind of amazing, especially because I had told you that I haven't really been drinking, but I like a dry red, and oh my gosh, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's lovely.
It's got some nice tannins to it. Yeah.
I like what it does to my mouth afterwards. It just it makes it
kisses it
in just the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good. And I know that everybody is waiting for my impression of the wine. My glass is empty.
Definitely got that terroir. I really, I love that.
I kind of just see fabric.
You see fabric.
I see fabric.
What kind of fabric do you see?
Like and I'm not very good at naming the fabrics, but something that's not a satin, but like soft yet. Okay, if your panties could be made out of this, it might be bad, it might be good. But when you have those wonderful throws that are kind of like I saw one at a Pottery Barn this weekend, but it's so soft and it's thick and it's heavy and it wraps itself up. But I have no idea what. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've been covering myself up with one for like 3 days. Chenille, but like furrier, and you don't want your panties to be furry. I mean, unless you're gonna wear something that is gonna totally not be.
That makes me think of the vest that you put there, though.
Yeah, the shawl that the wine bottle was wearing.
So I always talk about what kind of panties. So something that you want to
luxurious
and soft, and you want to slide into and just stay there.
Oh, okay. I think that those panties sound like panties that probably wouldn't stay on very long.
Well, if you're drinking your wine appropriately, and if you've picked your people to drink it with, hopefully not. But at this end of the day, you're still makes you feel nice and beautiful and sexy and soft. So if you have to be by yourself with this bottle of wine, you're going to be okay.
I did not think about panties.
Yeah. What did you think about?
Almost the opposite. It sounds like you went inward and got soft with it. And after I had it, I felt like I was on a horse and charging ahead and very free and very opening.
I love that.
So I was kind of like, that's why I was like, I have to have it all.
Yeah. I get that.
Just
give this girl a bar table so she can stand on it and start dancing.
Freedom, but not reckless. Just just perfect and in sync.
Yeah. I appreciate that kind of being outside and free emotion that you get with tasting this because thinking about the earth floor and some of those flavors that are there, I get visions of being outside and being free.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a Western. It was more rolly and kind of green.
English or French. French countryside.
Likely French.
Yeah. And then you hopped off your horse and painted a lovely picture.
Didn't get to that part.
Because you've only had a couple of sips. Wait till she's had a few more.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, good.
I think this is more for me, it would be Sex in the Woods, Yeah, because
as long as I have that really nice, comfortable blanket with me,
right? There you go.
Yeah. But we just opened this up. We didn't give it much time to breathe at all. And
here we go. We're already we just started the show and we're already
halfway through,
done with our first glass. That's how delicious it is.
Yeah. And I like to find things that I can just open up and start drinking.
That's true.
Right away.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to know that this bottle serves that purpose. And FYI, when I bought the bottle, I went ahead and bought another one.
Oh, good.
So I do have another bottle at home.
Is it here? That's my question.
It's not here. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. So, we'll just try to sip slowly because I think we have a lot to talk about.
We
today.
do. There's so many things that we can explore. We want to talk about your film. We want to talk about just the impact that you've had on our lives. We want to there's so much for us to explore here. So
give us like the skinny, the quick update, where the things stand. You've been doing festivals for Parallel Chords. You won stuff.
Yeah. So this is a kind of an interesting time because usually when you go and you're talking about it, it's like, oh, what festival are you going to next? What are you doing next with it? And I already knew we showed it before July, but from July on, it's been like that horse ride, only without the wine, and maybe the ground is a little more, prickly, and it's
a little there's that special blanket,
and lots of expectations, crowds.
Right.
So it's been really busy nonstop since July. We have gone to a number of places, L.A., Portland, Charlotte, Columbus, Kansas City, Woods Hole, which that one is super special. That's Cape Cod, and a lot of people know what Woods Hole is, but it's actually a really established, a really serious festival that when we were doing this St. Louis International Festival, I saw that there was a poster up, there was a poster up from one of the films at our festival that's now got its distribution. Okay. And if you see the picture of us at Woods Hole, their poster was just, no offense if they're listening, their poster was just a little square like that. And ours was, the full thing. Yes. And we're standing in front of it. And so I think distribution is probably the biggest thing on most feature filmmakers' minds in terms of, how are we going to do what we need to do? And there's so many different strategies, and it's like holding cards in a card game where you see what you have, but you're not sure what you're going to pick up, and you're not sure what you need to keep, and you're not sure what you need to get rid of. So I've had a lot of advising to not necessarily show it at a ton of places, just because distributors want it to feel fresh, and yet at the same time,
you need the exposure. Right?
Yeah, there's so many different ways about it, and I knew early on that we were going to be doing the St. Louis International Film Festival, and so having the showcase that we did in the summer, that was something where because that exists, I kind of had to do things a little bit differently because I felt like it's important to do that. A lot of people would maybe say, you can't do the showcase, you need to skip the showcase, you need to wait until you have a very big festival to start with. And that is the traditional route, is that you wait for the biggest festival that you can get, and then you do the smaller ones after.
Yeah.
Oh.
But unfortunately for me, the timing of when we finished, which was March of this year, I just feel like a whole part of me filming here was that I want to keep filming here. Right. And so I felt like it would be really kind of rude for the same city has supported me, and I've had other, films in the showcase and in the major festival that I couldn't imagine saying no. A lot of people were like, oh, you should just skip that part. And I was like, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. So,
good for
it didn't
you.
impact you negatively, did it? Maybe
it definitely may have in some ways, but it depends on what you judge as like the end result. And the thing is, for me, I think the most important thing for the film is touching the people who need and want this film and the audience reactions that I get. So I knew when we did our premiere that we were going to be not doing the typical route of wait the longest you can for something big and do a big boom, that it was going to have to be more of a crescendo, a very long crescendo. And I told everybody that because they're like, are you sure you want to do this for premiere? And I was like, we're just going to have to build that way. And so, I've gotten to experience with a lot of different audiences. And when people that I don't know come up to me afterwards and are shaky, that's kind of the whole point. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for everybody, but for a lot of people, that's what's happening to them. And I got to find a way to reach as many of those people as possible, because this is going to sound a little derogatory towards men, and I don't mean it to be that way, but there's
the name of our podcast.
Yes,
Cliterally
yes,
Speaking the
Sam's
Podcast.
awesome. But there's a little segment there that's like the 40-year-old-ish man right in there, I think, is missing something that is in the film, whereas I've gotten feedback from men over 55 that are truly moved, and the same thing from young men.
Interesting.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, how about instead of saying why that is, I'll just say, okay, I'm not sure why that is, but I know that the women are getting things that maybe a man in that particular age range, unless they had a child early, or like the men that like it that are older tend to have had a relationship, they've had a child, they've had a daughter, or they've been around the block and they've just acquired a certain amount of sensitivity,
right?
So and the young men are also kind of like that, because they're like, the ones that I've gotten to talk to, they're just stimulated and excited by the artsy kind of abstract, all these different things going on. Whereas the guy in the middle, I don't know that he necessarily gets some of the subtext that, like, women that come up to me about just tiny little things that are happening between the father and daughter are telling you, are giving you, it's not a mystery, but there's elements of that kind of tension and thrillery thing all throughout it, because certain people have said to me, I don't know if something's going to happen with them or if it's already happened, or so
there's an uncomfortable nature.
Yes, there's an uncomfortable thing there, which is supposed to be there. I wrote it a number of different ways. Like, there were different drafts where
it was all sunshine and rainbows.
Never. No. I even had one where the father shot himself at the piano at the very end.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of extremes. I think the skeleton of it has always been the same, but how you mold the skin and how you decide what the final thing is based on what you have also. And you have to kind of watch what's going on with the people you're working with and see, like, how they're interacting,
what those dynamics are like. Yeah.
I would never really want to force someone to go someplace if something else was coming up naturally and the other thing wasn't, because then you're just forcing a square in a circle.
Oh, interesting.
And so, wow, I just took you on a little. I'm not sure whether I left you in some paths here.
So you said you were building on a slow crescendo, doing the different festivals, kind of doing it your own way versus this is how this is the formula,
right?
But
the formula for sales, that's where I maybe I didn't make the best choices. It's not too late to still do well with it, and so there are some plans in play with that right now. But I just it's been nonstop until November, and I knew that, like, when I was in Portland, they're like, "What's your next festival?" And I was like, "My next festival is St. Louis International Film Festival," and they don't always know I'm living here, and they're like, "Oh, really? I want to get there." And I was like, "That's my home." I'm like, I get to come home, and that's where I'm going to finally have a little bit of a respite, because things have been going, nuts with my family, and then more recently with my husband. We have elders in our life, and things change, and so
time to focus on family a little bit.
A lot to carry, and I knew, like, just last week or the week before, it's like we're just now starting to, like, be able to maybe breathe, and so yeah.
Well, this has been sort of. I know Emily and I met on set 2 years ago, but you were working it before. We were there for a segment of the shoot, and then you had post production. I mean, so you haven't taken a break.
I haven't taken a break.
You haven't taken. It's like, I mean, it's like you're pregnant this whole time, and you're just trying to birth this baby.
Yeah.
And nobody asks a woman to carry a baby longer than, like, 42 weeks. And you've carried this thing for 2.5 years, 3, maybe?
Even before that, because you did the short prior to.
Yeah. I've been carrying it a long time, and I often say it's where it's at right now is it's that kid that I'm trying to get them into college, and I want them to be happy with the college.
First grade.
And see, and just as long as I know that, like, it's set up and it can, like, get out there and do what it needs to do. I mean, it's definitely already had a different kind of life of its own, but it's at that point where a lot of filmmakers like me too, are exhausted, and they're like, okay, I'm done, and what's the next thing? And I just feel like I have this really big responsibility to, after we've done everything that we've done, I've got to find a way to make sure that I do everything I can to put it where it can be seen by as many people as possible that want to see it.
Well, it's exquisite on so many levels. I mean, the story is complex. There's a lot of layers. I found that when I watched it, it was one of those movies that I sat and processed for several hours, and knew that when it was going to come back to the International Festival here in St. Louis, that I was eager to see it again because I wanted to revisit some of the themes that are in the story. So there's
you felt better prepared to see it the second time?
I felt like I could soak up some of it a little bit more. Yeah.
It's very dense.
So there's a lot to get out of it. But I also found, like so many of my favorite films, the visual storytelling is also really compelling. I think it's beautiful. Like movies to me that, some of my favorite films, The Piano, Amelie, like these movies all have layers of storytelling, and then they're just visually stunning, which I think you accomplished very, very well with this film. Thank you so much.
Those are definitely films that I would be aiming for. Those are in my wheelhouse as far as just like what I love and what I want to make. And so yeah, I mean, and that's another challenge too, because it's kind of like we have that kind of looking film, but we don't have that budget. And so like the films that are typically in our budget are more like cheaper horror films, So
they did on their iPhone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I wouldn't go that far. Right? Well, maybe, but no. I have a producer friend that was like, yeah, this is like an Ivy League, but you've got like very little money, and so so it's just, I appreciate though that you.
What are some other films that might be similar in that they've had the same kind of struggles that you've had, being the budget, but with the same kind of artistic vision?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know if. So, like with the St. Louis International Film Festival, I was one of 5. We were one of 5 films from around the world for first-time feature directors.
That's amazing.
So yeah, they don't usually put a local person in, so that was really neat.
That's a huge accomplishment.
And we did a little panel thing at KDHX, and so that's a good opportunity to hear. I mean, the films those 5 films were so very, very, very different. It's not like I was similar to somebody else's, but they all had their strengths and weaknesses, including mine. So everybody was approaching how they're doing this, like how they're going to get over the hurdle of distribution very differently. So like Farmer of the Year, they were at Woods Hole with me as well. And so we had already connected there, and their film is they're taking it on their own to different places. They call up theaters themselves and they just do it that way. And,
wow.
and they're like the cutest couple that's retired that this is what they're doing now. So they won, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I had already texted like a couple people after. I was like, oh, they're going to win, because audience just loved it. It was a comedy, and it's just fun. I think it's great. The gentleman next to me was kind of like, getting some feedback that I had gotten too, like don't get it out there too much, because then you don't have the opportunity of a bigger company coming and taking it. So there's a lot of things going on like that.
That feels a little disappointing and unsatisfying, because it's like, why I've made this piece of art. Like you say, you wanted to get it to people who will be impacted by it to see it. And yes, you want to make money too. I mean, we all want to make money on what we're doing. I mean, but do I really want to play a game with my film? And that's when you say, they say don't put it here until there. But it's like, I just feel like I'm.
Yeah, it's
and then that's to me. That's a little bit of my personality. I was like, why do I have to keep playing this game? Why can't I change the game?
Right. Well, so I'm kind of doing just a little bit of both. You know, so like because I had the short out there and I had a lot of festivals, there are some people that have asked, hey, when are we gonna? And I'll be like, just hold on. Maybe next spring. I have to see, because if the other thing that comes into play is if you show it in one place, then you can't show it in another.
Wow. They have all these territories.
There's all
politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you learn how to navigate this?
Well, I mean, I've been going to festivals since the 90s, and I have a lot of people that are in the arts and entertainment industry. So
connections that way.
But nothing could prepare you for how liquid everything is right now in terms of how much it's changing just even in the past 2 years. But I think finding other filmmakers and doing it kind of the way that I did, that helps you to you go, oh, my friend so-and-so is now over here and they're doing that. And I can see how they got there by, and we just all kind of give each other our helpful feedback. But that can be a problem too, because then you have people who do know how to sell a film. Like I'm working with someone right now and they know that part, and then you have filmmakers that might be telling you something different because they haven't had that job.
Right.
They've had the job of being the filmmaker trying to get it, you know.
Oh my gosh, I bet you're happy you have a little bit of a break just to process everything.
Yeah, and I don't really have a full break, but I have a break from the festival circuit for a little bit, and so yeah.
Well, my glass is empty, ladies.
Speaking
I
of
need to have
breaks,
a little bit more wine because I need my little blanket to wrap me up before we go and have sex in the woods, right?
Ooh,
off the horse. Not with the horse, but we'll get off, definitely not with the horse. Scratch that, Sam. Edit all that out. Ugh.
Okay, so then we'll start and I'll just take us out. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take that break. We'll refresh our glasses and come back with our conversation with Catherine.
All right.
Hey, I'm so glad that you like.
Oh fuck! Sorry.
That you like the piano anomaly and that you feel like that's
have a little bit more wine because I need my little blanket to wrap me up before we go.
Definitely what I'm
before we go and have sex in the woods, right?
Ooh. But so hopefully
the glass is empty, ladies.
Speaking
I
of
need to have a little bit more wine.
Cutting that out, but
wine because
calendar. I was like, I know I'm gonna drink when I see you guys. I know I'm gonna drink at the ACC party. I pick and choose.
All right, so
I need to have a little bit more wine because.
All right, so let's go ahead. Right.
But in the break section, just when with the
wine.
All right, so let's go ahead. Wine. All right, so
now 1 week since she's been here, and that has been like a crazy ordeal. Same time as I was trying to get rid of everything in my family house in South Carolina.
Oh my gosh.
South Carolina?
Columbia. Yeah, most of my contacts are more like Charleston. We always
Doherty.
And I'm Emily Lane.
Hello. Well, Emily Lane, how are you today?
Oh, that's my friend Danielle. That she and I have, I opened with the Indigo Girls with her and all that kind of stuff. Like,
You opened for the Indigo Girls?
Yeah. The week before I tore my ACL, actually, and we were at the end of our run for the short film.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
she's open for Bob Dylan.
all right.
Just an awesome gal. She actually came to Woods Hole too.
So what do you mean you open? So with your violin playing?
Yeah, me and Dan. So Dan,
all right.
when you watch the film, and anytime you have like contemporary music that's very sing-songy, that's the female, which is supposed to represent the interior voice of Jacqueline.
Oh gosh,
is Danielle's music, and I've known her since high school. So. And she's closer to Charleston, and that's where all my music peeps are. Like, we got a lot of musicians that are on the soundtrack that's from there, and North Carolina too. But Charleston, even though Columbia is where I went to school.
Oh my gosh,
high school,
college there too.
I did a little bit, but
not
watch the movie.
I will one of these days.
I had to flee.
I lived in Myrtle Beach for 8 years. My dad was in the Air Force, so when I was younger, like in the 70s.
All right. Wow. Yeah, Myrtle Beach is pretty cool. See, that's a perfect example. I see the Myrtle Beach Film Festival thing popping up, and I'm like, oh, my friends would really like it if I showed down there. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if. And everything is a fee too, So I've actually hardly submitted compared to what I did with the short because I'm just like picking and choosing, and I have a lot of waivers, like not a lot, but I have some free things, so I do those.
So how could we? Anyway. What would if we wanted to do like some kind of a showing Cliterally Speaking. How could something like that happen?
Oh, you mean for Parallel?
Yeah. Could something like that happen, or would that compete with what you're trying to do with getting it distributed?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It would depend on the kind of, like how we would want to do it venue-wise. I mean, to be frank, I'm still trying to raise enough money to do any of the publicity and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So, you probably already know that.
Well, let's talk about that.
So maybe
you and I get together.
Yeah.
Sometime when you're not buried. And let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why it is a bit of a bury too, is because it's like, okay, I'm going to send to this, but can I afford to get there? And then, a lot of the festivals have actually had, housing for me, which is great. And, but some haven't. And, it's just like, how you
because
all that.
It's a major outlay for you to go to these festivals.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Although some of them make it a lot easier than others.
Really?
Dude, my hosts for like the Portland Film Festival were so cool. That guy was like about to turn 80, and he and his wife had so much stamina. They went to movie screenings all day long, and in the morning they would go to like matinees and like soccer games before that, and then like she'd have to pull them away from like whatever party was starting up at night. I was like, oh my goodness, they were so cool. They were leaving for like the Halloween. What is it? The Day of the Dead but where you actually sleep in the cemeteries.
Oh, wow.
They were like leaving to go be a part of that. They love the movie Coco. And anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's a great
I digress, but that's, helpful because
people.
It's like they gave me, they were like, what do you like for breakfast? So they got that covered for me. They picked me up from the airport.
Yeah.
All those things that add up.
Right.
And other stuff.
Well, my daughter lives in Portland, so if you need another place to stay, she lived in a house with like 5 other people.
Darn it.
So we could have done the whole.
It's too bad we didn't get her to come to our screening there.
I know. I didn't know when we were doing that.
Oh,
I know.
boo!
But
Well, I put it up on Facebook, but I don't do that much more than that, to be honest. I mean, I try. I kind of send out seed and spark things every now and then for the people who know about that. And sometimes I'll hit a cast thing, but maybe you're not on my cast list. I got to make sure that you get on my cast list. I think that you would
put me on that. She is like the epitome of extras list.
Yes, the queen.
Yeah, the queen extra. The queen extra list. And then, so that's you probably just forget to add that, on the distribution of everything.
Ken's in the movie.
Oh, yes.
There's so many cool things we have to talk about.
I have not heard. What did Ken think? I really want to know. Do you want to talk about it on this, or do you want to tell me now?
Let's go back in.
Yeah.
Now my mouth is full.
Yeah.
I won't make any stupid gaffes like that as long as my mouth is full.
I'm always...
God bless America. That sounds bad, too. Stop.
I'll bring us back in. How about that? All right. Yes. And we're back with nice full glasses. We had kind of a little bit of a fun conversation there during our break. So if you're one of those people that like to get all the little extras and tidbits, feel free to go check them out on our YouTube channel. Hello, we'll wave. Hello,
we always
YouTube.
like when you make comments down below.
The red dot. So
yeah. Oh no, it does. That red dot doesn't show up on the.
I know. That's what I.
Well,
really?
Yeah. We have a special iPad. It doesn't show up like that.
Well, one of the things that we were starting to talk about was, I think one of the great things about having this movie made here in St. Louis is that, aside from the fact that we're on screen, so many, we know many of the people that had a moment, from our friend that played the teacher from New Line Theater,
Mike Dottie Windsor.
Yeah. He's in it. My fiance. Ken Colosa is in the film.
My friend's Sarah's son, Max Rodhouse, is in the film.
Yeah. So, and of course, I know the piano hands, and I know the actual violinist, and so there's lots
my
of
hair gel.
Yeah, right.
My hair gel helps with Bjorn's hair, and that one scene.
Right.
I think it was critical.
Okay.
I came in
at the right time.
At the crunch.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys knew Mike. Mike Dowdy.
Yes.
That's really cool.
No, this is the cool thing because
he was a murderer for me, because I'm an actor too. So he had like had his arms around me with like a knife and this and that. I was like, you'd be great for this professor in Parallel.
He did a great job.
So
he
because
really
of
did.
your movie, your story that you wrote, that you worked at, and you wanted to get made, the ripple effect, the domino effect of what cool things have happened since then. And Emily and I,
lives,
think about it, this podcast would not exist had you not written your story. Because of being on the movie and meeting Mike Dowdy-Windsor, he invited me to be on the New Line Theater board.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, so now I'm like involved there, making raising money for them, doing things for New Line,
right? Which was part of what we met, of course, on set, but then Michelle and I kept running into each other at New Line because I play there, and
and I was invited by Mike to come see Zorba, and then I was thinking on the way here where I was like, oh, let's talk about the ripple effect and like situations in your life, the domino, and I said because I don't know if you and I would have met,
right?
Although she did reveal on an earlier podcast that we were at the same Apocalyptica
concert
in 2011, and then we did your movie in 2016.
Yeah,
5 years had gone by, and we didn't know each other then, so it all is because of you. And I think it's so cool when you can like look at something tangible,
and
like
see the
unintended positive effects.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. I just feel so great when you say the ripple effect. It warms me inside. I'm surprised I'm not crying right now, just because like that's. There's so many. I mean, Rachel's coming back to do a movie with more St. Louis people. I applied for another grant this year, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. I think I hear about it sometime this month, maybe later this week even. And one of the things that I said in that, you have to kind of like prove that you're going to be helpful in St. Louis and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, it really is a big deal that we had all these people working together. And even though I brought people in from outside, that didn't mean that I excluded who was here. It's like you had musicians who have never been with actors before, connecting with people who are in Mad Men or Sopranos or, whatever. And then you have, just the combination of people. So like the guy who I know, people don't know the film necessarily. Parallel Chords, go find it somehow.
Yes.
Bother me and get it. The gentleman who plays the college friend, who's the sort of jazz pianist, Marty.
He's a delightful guy.
Yeah. And I just said the wrong name because Corey has played two roles now. Corey played Marty in the short, and he played Matthew in the feature.
Okay.
And so Corey's from Charleston. Corey's like a person who's been around for a long time with me, and I know him through Danielle, who we were talking about, who's a musician in South Carolina. And Corey now, from doing the film, like now he's living in LA, and when he first went there, he stayed with Bjorn first, who's my lead actor.
Right.
And
I just
like
adored meeting him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Rachel and Bjorn have actually, they played father-daughter in the film, but they've actually formed this relationship that's very,
mentor.
very much so.
Mentor.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
And then just think of the people listening to our podcast that get impacted by the positive things, like you don't even know their names or their faces, get to have that because of you.
Aw.
Right.
Yeah. That's a lot of power too. And I guess I just want to encourage everyone out there who listens and has a creative bone in your body, do it. Write your story, write your book, write your screenplay, write your music, because the impact that you have, you might feel all alone while you're working on it. The draft, revision, edit, no, change this, change that. But the positive effect that your art can have on people that you will never even know, but know that it has had that impact.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
It's very much a wonderful life moment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whenever a bell rings, another podcast has been formed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's so.
It's a really cool film. It is, what I hope happens with it, and that's why when we were talking before about like different sectors that maybe don't get it, like I do get a little bit frustrated with that middle sector who I think maybe thinks because it's a personal story that I'm just doing it to work
through your demons.
Exactly. And I'm like, did you really not get that there was other stuff going on with the father? Did you really miss that? So like that sector kind of, it's like, oh my goodness. Anyway.
I have a question, speaking of some of the challenging things to process about the film, you started this film was well underway far before the Me Too era began. Mm-hmm. And there's clearly, beyond the father-daughter dynamic, another Me Too story in this film. I'm just curious for you as the creator, how, at what point did you know that this was part of the story that should be told? How was that frightening for you to be so vulnerable, to put that out there? Like, what finally led you to say this needs to be a part of the story?
I love the way you phrase that, but it's a challenging question to answer accurately because when I first wrote the first draft, I've just gotten through saying it's not about me working through my humans. And yet, when I wrote it, I honestly didn't think anything was going to happen with it. I had been fortunate enough. I was in New York at the time. I was working with a theater company that I'd been with. I'm not sure how long I'd been with them at that point, but they're very established people that are. I was like the baby, by 15 years. Allison Janney is probably the most famous one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she invited me to be a part of that company. And so it was only 12 of us, and Joanne Woodward sponsored that company to start. And it was like most of the people had gone to the neighborhood playhouse for acting, but a lot of them are writers or directors. And it wasn't just like an actor's troupe or a writing troupe or what. So there was a lot of different...
It was diverse.
Yeah, it was diverse. And so I was very surprised that the folks who much more established than me and older than me allowed me to direct. I didn't go after it. They were just like, Catherine, you'd be good for this, here, do this.
Yeah.
And I'd been teaching since I was 14. And I had this kind of thing where like I'd stage manage and people would just kind of hand responsibility over to me because they know that I wouldn't... I would take care of it, and I'd probably work too hard, and then, make sure everything's just right. And I know I'm kind of going away from answering questions.
You'll get it back. I mean,
I will.
You're just used to talking in 2.5-hour segments.
Ooh, can we make it 2 hours then?
Much like our good friend Michelle here.
I know. I really want to.
Have you heard about me?
Well, that's everyone's used to me talking for 2.5 hours.
We need to do the soft shoe.
I am just, I'm just a smart ass. That's all.
But
that's all.
So I had a couple of things that I'd written that we had already produced on stage, and we would have 500 submissions and blah, blah, blah. And we did an AIDS piece with, different writers, and just be like, oh my gosh.
You like
I got
those difficult topics.
Yeah, I had some of my things done, and I still, I grew up in a house where you practice 8 hours a day and you don't get to call yourself a musician. So I didn't really think like, oh, I get to be a writer now. But so when I wrote this thing, when I had like put little visuals in a folder for quite a while, and I had been thinking about it. I kind of work up here for a long time,
right.
And then eventually it goes, So even though it took a long time to get to the point where I'm directing it and you actually get to see it on the big screen, when I actually first got it out on the page, and I used a notebook, by the way, just handwriting, it came really fast. It came like maybe in just a couple of days.
Wow.
And then it went back and it was like sculpted and resculpted. But it leads me as much as I lead it.
Yes.
So when something like that happens, there was a lot of, the emotional. I loved my dad, but that's a different. My personal life and sculpting a story that I think will be effective for people and get at ideas that I want them to experience doesn't mean that I'm doing a documentary, right?
Of course.
So the feelings of, emotional incest and the sort of not being able to speak up for yourself and how to do it and how to do it right, because you have to obey, because you have to, there's so many things going on. So when I got it out, like, yeah, the scene that you're speaking of at the tree, that's always been there. Mm-hmm. So, but to me, it's for the little sector of people that don't get it, for me, it's just the same as what she's dealing with. I mean, she's dealing with
her voice not being heard,
right? And in the short, we could be more experimental and show it more overtly. And that, did you see the short? By any chance?
See the short.
Okay, so being able to bring the performance to the tree where it's actually happening and take it away and keep messing with that, and you can't do that for a 98-minute film. But that element of it was like, people are making me perform, or I'm, So when she goes to the woods, she thinks she's gonna be free, and she gets to call her own shots, and she's gonna let loose. She's gonna break, these ties that she's feeling, and instead, she goes, "Okay, I'm free." And then once again she loses control.
Loses that power.
Well,
so. With every writer who puts fiction out there, I mean, you have to draw from your own well, but that doesn't mean that experience happened to you directly. And that's one of the things we try to remember. It's like, this is not your memoir. This is not the documentary biography, like on A&E, Catherine Dudley-Rose, violinist, filmmaker, and this happened to her at a tree. No, but you recognize those emotions because something has happened to you in your life that you can identify with that. And then you're able to articulate that in words and visuals and storytelling. And then that impacts other people to realize, oh, I'm not alone. Mm-hmm. I get it. I understand that. So, so for, everybody out there, I understand that writers and authors and filmmakers, you have to draw from your own experience. Even Star Wars is drawn from somebody's experience,
I am convinced that George Lucas must have had Yorkies because Ewoks look just like my dog. So there you go. Build on that.
Yeah. That's awesome. But I think what's kind of cool is that you included the scene and the impact on her life and how integral it was to the story, because it does. These things happen to you and it stays with you before the Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. And that, it's kind of scary. You're putting it out there and you don't know how people are going to react. Now we have, like Emily and I have said on the podcast before, we do have a better vocabulary to use. And I hope people don't expect that every movie is going to have a rape scene or something happen to them, because now we're all, sharing our Me Too stories. But we can talk about it easier after,
without the embarrassment,
without a shame, or like,
there's a community of women out there that
and understand. Then more power that way. So to be a trailblazer, before the movement or the era has started. I mean, that's like kudos to you.
Thank you.
I
feel like I could have talked about it back then too, and I feel like I don't know.
It sounds like you were in a supportive community up in New York with your actors community. I mean, obviously,
that's true.
You were
that's
definitely, if they're handing you roles here, do this, do that. I mean, that's lifting up, and I would be curious, like, what was the gender balance in that?
That's
more women than men.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, but we're probably a good, I don't know, maybe 40-60.
Oh, that's not bad.
Maybe
that's
35-40. I'm not sure. I mean, I have been fortunate enough that I've always been around. I thought that was like, that would be a good sign if you'd be like, okay, we need to move on to a new top team.
It was totally unintentional. It was me swirling my glass.
Next.
Ambitious swirling going on here.
But you've said you've been with supportive environments.
So I think that having taught from an early age has always had, I've just been fortunate to be around men that didn't seem to have a problem handing me responsibility. So, I mean, early on, I would look around and people go, you're supposed to find your role model that you parallel. You're supposed to find this person that's gonna, and also I went to New York when I was very young, so a lot of people were always older than me that I was hanging out with. And so they try to, impart some wisdom to me, and then I'd be like, but there wasn't anyone necessarily. Or maybe there was, and I just didn't necessarily see them, and I was like, oh well, I was kind of like, oh well, the women, I could see that there were certain things going on for men, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm like that. I'm not, but I didn't go like, oh well, that's a man and I'm a woman, so I can't. Or just be like, well, it might be harder, but whatever. It's just gotta like work. There's no time to be whining about it. It's just gotta work.
Yeah, it's just there are women out there who have not had that luxury of being with supportive environments, so it's pretty powerful for them to be able to see, stories that they can relate to. So it's almost like you can give voice to those that haven't had an ability to tell their story, and but now they can touch it a little bit more. Maybe that releases them.
That's definitely the intention. The intention is definitely to be able to go, hey, tell your story.
Get on your horse everything. And ride through the woods now and be free. Be free. Well, I definitely regret that I haven't seen it yet, but you kept scheduling it when I was on vacation. And again, because I don't get that email list, because I'm on a separate email list of, but I'd be willing to drive to Chicago, Nashville, 4 or 5 hours to go see the show.
We've already established that Michelle likes to go on vacation a lot. So perhaps we just need to figure out which is the next venue it's going to showcase in. And as long as Michelle doesn't already have another.
One. That was really, they were all good. Oh, yeah. But
that was a women's
if
festival,
traveling
right?
and no distance is a problem, that was really quite
that was that one featured with female.
Got an award,
Best Feature Writer. And I cried my butt off at the
Did you have to give
at the Academy Awards. I mean, at the awards.
Did you give an acceptance speech?
Yes, it was bizarre because
tell us about it.
Oh my gosh, I'll send you guys a picture later too, because were
you prepared? When they call, you have something, you've been nominated, so you have something prepared.
Well, this was the thing, is they had called me a couple months in advance to say, are you definitely going to be there because you're strongly being considered for, and they didn't tell me what for, for an award. And I, people could say that sometimes just because they want to make sure that they have a lot of people at the award ceremony or whatever. Right. And so I didn't know how much weight to give that. And it's one of the festivals that, not every festival does this, but they put a little bit of money into their awards thing. And so they're, like the woman who accepted an award before me produced Dallas Buyers Club. So yeah, so they have like the stage, they have the MC, the place is full, and the head of it always dresses up really fancy. I say always because I was there with my short before, and I knew they had, at that time they had said you have to wear a dress or something like that. They didn't say that this year, but I did wear a dress back then, but not this time. And anyway, so I just was watching other people go up, and I had seen that some people had cards, and my husband's was not there. He's far away, and I was texting him I don't think I'm going to get something because these people seem really prepared. They seem like they know. And then I watched some other PAs scurry through the audience and tap some couple, and then moments later they went up, and I was okay, so
you haven't been tapped, you're not prepared.
Yeah, exactly. And Best Feature had already
thank God I'm not in a dress. Right? You're looking on the bright side.
Yeah.
Right? I'm in my flats. I'm not in a dress this time. It's fine. It's all fine.
I'm strange that way, but yeah, I hadn't been tapped, and I Best Feature had already been given, and so I was just kind of bending over and moving something, and I heard blah 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 violinist, and I was like, oh, I give it my film, and I was like, should I give my phone to these people behind me to take some pictures of me? What should I do? And not that I haven't gotten an award before, but I was kind of far away from it, and they were already saying on the monitor that somebody else was there to accept for me, and I was like, what's happening? And so I got up there, and I was like, no, it's me. I'm not that person that you just mentioned. I am here, and because it was writing, I don't know. I just started crying a bunch, and I was like, I started talking about writing in my room, and that it was the thing that let me know it wasn't my fault. And I was able to I didn't get into all these details, but I was able to observe people's behavior and then try to figure it out through writing. And so it made me okay with who I was. Otherwise I would have been really, really damaged. And I'm pretty sure I was pretty damaged for a long time. And I'm not so damaged right now. But
writing helped you process.
Absolutely. It made me forgive also, and just sort of kind of try and be like, why I can't be this bad, there has to be some reason why. And anyway, so yeah.
Well, let me
so
ask
I cried
you
a lot.
Let me ask you this. You wrote it,
yeah.
But when did you say this has to be a movie?
It's a great question, and it's one of the reasons why the timeline gets thrown all out of whack for people who've known me for a long time, because I did a solo performance piece in New York on Theater Row where I played myself, my father, my mother, and the violin. And I don't know if you know who Jean-Claude Van Natali is, but he's a famous playwright. And so he had you submitted for this. It was through Playwrights Horizons, and he had selected 5 people who should do solo performance pieces. And so we all did 20-minute pieces. I was thinking it might have been Salman Rushdie's daughter that also did one. I'm not sure. Anyway, so there were 5 of us, and people after that were like, "Oh, you should extend this to be like an hour and tour around." And I was like, "Absolutely not!" Like the emotional thing with it was like, no. I'm that was good. I did that. I'm done with that. And it wasn't until a long, long, long time later that I already love films, and I would always be. There's a place in New York where it's all categorized by director and just foreign and indie. I just was like feverishly digesting all this, I just loved it. And, I love art too. And I think this is a big part of the visual thing you were talking about. So anyway, I feel like the ding should come because I'm.
What's interesting to me.
Wait, let me bring you to.
Yeah.
What, did you just wake up in July of 2012 and say, this has got to be a film, and I'm going to make my life hell for the next 5 years making this happen?
Okay, so I can answer in really selfish, terrible ways, because I was, acting a lot, and I wanted to push things to the next level, right? And so I had already kept this folder of visual ideas that had been on my mind, and I know I can write, sort of, so I've been told. And Sling Blade, they did a short first, and so and I was like, okay, he was trying to get himself a career. I just started looking at different actors who had writing abilities as well, and
did Billy Bob Thornton write?
Yeah.
Seriously, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
Yeah, that is.
Well,
it's been so long.
We'll Google it, and if we're wrong, we'll put a little correction.
I know that they tried to keep the short off the shelves after the big one was.
Okay.
Oh, I'd love to see the short.
So I was, inspired by things that were way above what I would probably have been capable of doing, but somehow I got through enough to keep it maybe I can, because when I gave it to my writer friends to just, after I did that week of just, all I said was let me know what you think and make a free copy, because each copy is $10 or $11, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know whether this is any good. And then, I ended up getting all this feedback of oh my gosh, I want to show this to these people at some places that are now maybe not looked at so highly at, at Miramax or, all these.
Right, but we didn't know that then. But.
And then I had it optioned within a couple of years, and I had writer friends who hadn't even had screenplays optioned yet.
Amazing.
That's exciting.
So, it's interesting to me because it seems to me that I know that you're in this moment where you're not exactly sure what's going to happen next. And you've been, kind of pushing hard down this road, and it's been nonstop, and you're trying to make sure that as many people as possible know about this film, and you're still managing your personal life on top of it, and it's a really intense time. But in addition to the good that's come out of it that we talked about earlier, what's amazing to me is to think about all the good that had to happen for you to actually be in this seat right now as well, because what's amazing about your journey is the path that you took and the great people that came along your way that said, you're a great writer. You should act this out into a show. You should, that really helped you sculpt this into what it has become, which says to me that you are on the right path. I mean, I really
we
feel
did look
that
at
so
our crystal
firmly.
ball before the show, and it said, "Let her know she is on the right path."
I want to touch it later.
Well, I'll tell you what you can touch is a fresh glass of wine.
We can, yeah.
Yes.
And then one other thing before I completely mess up again. Well, I always believe that if things are supposed to happen, it's easy. Now, I know that it's been tiresome, and you've had to do a lot of hard work, but it hasn't felt, and I know I'm putting words in your mouth, it hasn't felt like it was the wrong thing to do.
I've always felt that I had to do this.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And I get that sense from you. I got that sense from you at the Fox Theater. What I've seen, even talking with Rachel. I mean, this was supposed to happen.
It's so natural for you. Yeah.
It's weird that I ended up directing it because with it taking as long, I wasn't trying to direct it when I wrote it. I wrote it as a vehicle for myself.
Yeah.
No, I was going to be in it. I was going to be her. I mean, you laugh now, but, I have a weekend shoot. You should see it sometime of some New York stuff where I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And who's going to direct it? And we looked at a lot of women directors before people were like, ooh, where are the women directors? Like, I knew some. There's plenty. They've been around. So anyway,
awesome.
Fascinating.
Fantastic. Let's take our final little pause here with a little bit of wine. We want to divvy this up and make sure that we have
make sure it's equal.
Yes, and make sure we have some glasses for the final segment here. We'll refresh and see you back in a moment. So I'm curious, is this acceptance speech of yours on video? Could we share it?
I am so frustrated with them because I have contacted them many times to try and get it. It should be because there were like cameras all over the place, and then afterwards they whisked me off into the back, and I was apologizing then too, and they're like, "Oh no, it's great." And then they took all these other pictures, and I had to work my darndest to even get the one picture that I have.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Who knows? Maybe if somebody else was reaching out to them and trying to get it, and they thought, it wasn't just the filmmaker.
Yeah.
Maybe I could wrangle it up. But I did try a number of times. But I also tried right after the festival, and I know that festival heads have the same issues that we do in terms of they are busy. They are very busy, and they're not just waiting for a call for something to do.
That's a good idea. What?
So,
water? What's that?
But let's see. I at least have. Let's see if I have the photo with me. After bothering people a bunch, but I can always email it if I don't find it really quickly. Yeah, it's probably not a great use of my time. Every minute counts right now, right? Oh, there it is.
Okay.
So this is how I was reacting.
Oh my God,
I love it.
I haven't posted it yet. I'm waiting for the perfect time.
Can you share this with us? Can we share it? And this will be when this airs, which will be we're 5 weeks out.
Oh, after 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to share it. And we could
I was
share
teasing
it.
him this is what I look like when I'm happy.
I love it.
I was like,
that's so amazing. What a great photo.
Well, what's kind of fun is in Portland, this girl who I ended up, darn it, I got to go and look at where her name is. I forget it now, but she was very sweet. She was another filmmaker, and she came up to me and she's like, Catherine, blah, 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 blah. And I was trying to figure out what's going on. How do I know her? And she was like, we might not have met one-on-one, but I heard your acceptance speech. I was at that festival.
Oh, wow.
And she said, we were getting so bored and tired. And then you came up and she said, you made everybody cry. And we were like, that's why we do this. And
I love it.
So she liked me, even though I don't think she saw the film. But I think she had worked with Kyle, too.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, but...
Okay.
Fantastic.
Ripple.
Kyle Krupinski.
Yes.
He's a
My
friend of
wonderful DP.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually lived with him in college for a while.
Really?
Mhm.
Do you guys still talk?
Yeah.
Oh, well, please, say hello. I'll say hello later, too.
Okay.
I'm sure I tagged him yesterday, but, yeah, that would be good.
We used to, when we were freshmen in college, we used to surreptitiously drink beer in his dorm room
Uh-huh.
and then hide all the bottles in his unused dresser drawers.
Oh my gosh.
And slowly push them closed and then go.
Just for fun?
Well, to get drunk, but no. I mean,
They were trying to hide
Yeah,
the.
we're
Were you on a dry
Yeah.
campus?
Oh.
No, and we're just like, he was the closest door to the, whatever you call it.
Counselor.
The, like, floor.
Oh,
The RA.
floor monitor.
The RA, yeah.
Is this Webster? Where did you go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. Neato.
Okay. I still have this
I really love
froggy thing going on.
this. Mm.
I'm working on
A lot
it.
of people have been kind of sick lately.
I got sick
I'm sorry you were sick.
like this
Right.
Sunday, Monday before Thanksgiving.
Mm.
And this is still hanging on. I still can't hear out of my left ear.
Mm. Oh, no.
Isn't that crazy?
No.
I
I mean,
know.
yes.
I
it
know.
is.
I'm getting there, though. I'm getting better. Thank you for the wine is what's fixing me, clearly.
The wine is so good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Nice choice.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
You can get it from
I got
Stars
the favorite one.
at Big Bend, and
Excuse
it's
me.
on sale for $12.99 a bottle. So I think that was
That's great.
a really good
It's
price.
a really good price. I think I might have to go get a few. Yeah. Okay, let's bring this bad boy back in. We're ready. Okay, and we're back with fresh glasses. What's
know.
left of this
What's left
delicious
of it.
wine.
I wish you wouldn't have drank so much, Emily, and left some for me.
Well, I am quite thirsty. It has been a while,
I know.
I know.
I know. You
So,
have some replenishing to do.
That's exactly my wine levels are low right now. So, yeah.
Your circulatory system is like
What's going
our
on? This is
balance is
real-
out of whack.
Right.
There's
yeah.
like way more red blood cells than red wine cells inside of us right now.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Well, I have one more film question for you, if you don't mind. I actually have several, but the one that's coming to mind right now is, the Uncle Vanya is such a prominent theme in the story, and I want to know for you what was the importance of making this a part of the signature of the film.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, who's Uncle
Watch
Vanya?
out. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have no idea. So if I have no idea who Uncle Vanya is, then our
really?
listeners aren't going to know who
Okay,
Uncle Vanya
so,
is.
well, when you get home tonight or whenever you have a free moment, and if you feel like looking into classic drama,
Okay.
you'll look up Chekhov.
Okay.
And this is one of, I don't know if you know this, but it was originally called The Woods.
Oh,
Yeah,
was it
and it
really?
did not do very well as The Woods, and then he reshaped it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but anyway,
It's an
Chekhov,
it's amazing.
Uncle Vanya
Yeah.
is a play that the main character wants to do. She has already, when we catch up with her in high school, she clearly has a passion for drama, which is a very different kind of thing for her than the classical music that she's supposed to do, practicing with Dad every single day.
This is her
competitions
story, by the way.
every single weekend. But she's already been cast in the high school play, but she comes and you can see when she goes into the theater world that she's excited and happy, and she has a very different body language than how she feels when she's like having to do what she has to do. Her musical
to survive.
duty.
Yeah, to survive.
And
She's much more vulnerable and real when she's in the theater space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as she says it's fun. She's but when she comes in, she sees that the theater teacher has already gotten a backup for her because she has so many conflicts and she has been missing a lot of rehearsals. So when you get to see the movie, you'll see that this is something that when she uses the closing monologue from the play to
Uncle Vanya.
from the play Uncle Vanya to kind of keep her heart alive. And to kind of give her hope, but once again, I'm a little bit twisted. It is dark. It is about death. It's about
as is Uncle Vanya.
Yes. So the closing monologue is this beautiful monologue, but your question to me is like the importance of it to the whole film. It serves a purpose on a number of levels, which one day maybe we'll do an educational how many parallels do you see? That would be,
Right.
that would be really, really fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Because nothing is there by accident. So, but in that monologue, she's talking about a place where we'll finally get to this place where there'll be peace. And actually, I can take this
we
off
shall
right
rest.
now. And one of the things that I said needed to
We shall rest.
Yeah, and and then put a music rest there. So I actually would love to get some pillows with "We Shall Rest" too, and I'd like to give those out as holiday gifts. So maybe you ladies can talk to me later about how we can do that.
I have some resources for you for that. Yes,
but anyway, she talks about resting, and a lot of the stuff that she's doing throughout the film that she has an obligation to do is she plays multiple perpetuo. She has to, which means constant motion. She has all this stuff that is constantly going on, and so she uses these words to like kind of comfort her. Right? It's like her medicine. And then but the sad part that I didn't totally go into in this particular rendition, just because of production money and all that kind of stuff, is like, you know, she's thinking about death. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things in the film that were like, how far do we go with this? And like, okay, we pulled back a little bit on that.
Well, you can see there's that moment where she's contemplating. Like, you can see that.
Was she contemplating suicide?
Yeah. And I mean, in the film that we end up with, there's a lot of things that it's not that I necessarily intended to soften them. It's that, you know, things go the way they go, and then you deal with what you have, and you go, okay, this is as far as this feels right without it being pushed, you know. But you know, there were again, production money.
You're rewriting
constraints.
On the fly, right?
There's things where, like, you know, if you have a scene written where a character who regularly has a car goes to a tree where she had something happen to her and she rams into it and takes glass everywhere, and she's, you know, doing something, obviously that's going to have a different cinematic impact than if you can't afford a car and you can't have the wreck and you can't do all that. So I said, okay, we have music notes and a little knife, and she's going to stab them, you know. And so that idea of
which I think was very effective. Thank you.
Thank you. It's
I don't think
much
you needed
cheaper.
And you didn't need the big car scene, quite frankly. Like, because I think in a way that's far more symbolic, that she cut her tie to the music at that moment and she left.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler alert. But,
it's not too much at all. But so yeah, hopefully that answers your question in terms of the importance of it. But also, you know, it's that family structure, and she's like the one who has to keep everybody going and keep doing the work. Which
makes sense. The tie in there.
Yeah, and then a lot of the visual set designs, if you ever look at some beautiful set designs for Chekhov, is always placed with the aristocratic, like, piano and all this kind of stuff surrounded by trees and woods.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so
isn't that amazing?
That's my ideal is we will rewrite and do a stage version of it as well, and you know, we'll do a series and blah.
I love that idea. Yeah, because there's definitely other stories I want to learn more about within this. Like, you know, in the story, she has a brother. I want to know more about her. I want to know more about the mom, because there's interesting peripheral things going on that, you know, this story is very much about Jacqueline, but every character that's in it has a point of interest. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then after you go through all of those main characters, there's this extra in the scene. She's kind of behind the young Jacqueline, and there's quite an interesting story there.
For sure.
If you feel like, you know, if you're looking for material.
I mean, I think this is the same character that might have a podcast down the road.
I think so. I think, you know, you can't really tell it, right, when you're looking at her and she's doing her extra thing.
Yeah.
But I think she's got a podcast called Cliterally Speaking. But I mean, I realize that you have a lot of material to go through first. I understand that. But if you need help.
Well, I'm good with all parallel stories coming my way. And that's what I always say. I'm like, share your parallel stories. Ken is a perfect example. Yeah. I think he has a really cool parallel story. And you still haven't told me whether he liked the film or not.
Oh my gosh, of course he did. Yeah, I think he was a little shocked seeing himself.
Really?
Like on a screen. You know, he's in 2 scenes.
Oh.
He basically plays himself. You know, he plays this a teacher, and who is a very demanding teacher, you know, of music, and which is very much Ken. You know, he's extremely talented. He's worked very hard to achieve what he has musically, and he expects his students to work hard as well. And so he's putting pressure on the character in the story to step up. And So he's very convincing and a little scary, which, to be honest with you, I've taken lessons with Ken. So it's how we met, right? And he is intimidating. And I cried a few times in some of my lessons with him because, you want to deliver to that expectation. You want to be good. You want to, so I could relate to Jacqueline in those moments.
Especially with the kid.
Oh my gosh.
Did you cringe in the seat? Oh, this is way too familiar.
But I think it was kind of shocking for him, to see it. But he thought it was the execution, like to get to actually see it from being like in the seat, seeing it being filmed and being a part of it to actually seeing the result. I think he was pretty overwhelmed and, very, very impressed.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I hoped so because there's certain people, like if I don't talk to them afterwards and then I don't hear from them, and I'm pretty sure I reached out to and I was like, did you like it?
And
I don't know. There's some people that are like,
well, haven't you had to kind of, obviously, in your theater time and writing and directing and doing all those things, know that, some things aren't going to be for everybody.
Absolutely.
But you've put out a quality product, and so they can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
It's like the story might not relate, they might not care for it, but they can never say that it wasn't beautiful or it was terrible editing. I mean, because you have a quality product, so.
No, we unfortunately when it filmed, here, we both had obligations. Like we were on tight timelines that day. So Ken actually moved a student back so that he could come see it, and so he was in a very tight window to get back, and then he had a performance that night, and I had a thing when it aired here. So we were like. We had to leave before the credits were done, which was so his early departure was not a statement of the film at all.
Good. Yeah, no, I definitely don't think everybody will love it, but there's certain people that I'm like, I would want to know what Ken Kulosa thinks. I'm going to want to know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's an artistic guy.
Yeah.
Did you ever kind of, just another Uncle Vanya question real quick, did you ever act in the play?
It's just so funny because like it's what we were talking about before about like the personal and the memoir aspect and all this kind of stuff, and it's like the easy answer is no. But a lot of times people do segments and sequences and scenes and this and that. It actually wasn't like the one and only play I wanted to do, which it kind of feels like if you see 98 minutes and that's the play that's out there. But I thought it effectively worked for what I needed. And I love Chekhov, and I liked this idea that even though she thinks she's kind of breaking free, that she's drawn to the classics.
That's funny.
And irony there.
And then that she meets her kindred spirit and using the drinking part. I mean, there's a whole other thing of drinking. Yeah. So, right?
Yeah.
Which is all throughout the film.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
A coping mechanism.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Not so much her. I mean, it's people around her, and so like you said, there's things there that you can branch off of that we don't have time in the 98 minutes, but you just look at Ben, like just look at the guy she ends up with,
Yeah.
So.
Which is a deer. Like he's such a sweetheart.
He's a fellow that she meets in the street who happens to have Uncle Vanya as his favorite play and immediately responds to her. I kind of want to do a beautiful program so that, people when they go to a movie, they don't have the same thing as when we go to a theater show or, symphony or whatever. And I really feel like being able to open up her world and like kind of go, this is referencing this, and because not everybody, I know not everybody's going to get it when he quotes from it right back to her on the street, So they'll feel it.
Yeah.
But I like movies or TV shows where I know that like something's just happened and I might not be educated on that and not know that, whether it's a medical thing or whatever. I was like, oh, just by the reaction I can tell something just happened. They know something.
Yeah, but we can't really do like pop-up video like VH1 used to do. Yeah, on that. But I think your idea of providing more context for the things, even on your website.
An online program.
And then, again, I think I'm pretty serious, except for that part about the extra. I think you should explore everybody the side stories, the parallel stories of all of your characters, because if you look at, like, authors will do that. They'll take, this, not to say, I'm not endorsing this story, but even, 50 Shades went and then took his Christian story, right? I mean, that's just a way to keep people engaged, and folks, they eat that up.
Well, considering everything that my mom's been through, Laura, who plays the mother, I already told her, right from the get-go, as we were finishing the St. Louis stuff and we still hadn't shot the New York City stuff, I said, I'm thinking of a hybrid doc fictional thing using, real stuff with my mom, but then also a character, and just calling it May, because we don't get to see her, and she's so supportive and flitting around everybody the whole time.
And there's something going on with her for sure. Yeah. Like, you get it. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's other projects that aren't parallel that I'm definitely interested in doing, but it is the kind of thing where everybody's like, what else are you going to do with it?
And at what point do you make the decision to pivot and start exploring these other parallel tracks?
Well, some of them have already been explored a little bit, but
your visualization folder, putting things in.
Oh yeah. I already that a lot of that's already started. But I have a couple of other stories I'm interested in. Alice Coltrane, John Coltrane's wife, and Andrew Wyeth, the painter, and so there's.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
It's not because he's my favorite painter; it's because of the family dynamics, and that's.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So there's a number of things.
Can you give us a brief? Like, I'm unfamiliar with the dynamics.
So do you know? But you know him as a painter, right?
Absolutely.
And for those of you who don't and who care, it's Christina's World is probably the most famous painting of his, which is a girl in pink where you don't see her face, and her body is kind of turned and reaching towards a farmhouse in the distance. And it's a woman who actually is somewhat of a paraplegic. I mean, she doesn't know. Yeah, in real life, she's based on a real person who can't necessarily move properly, but she looks beautiful in this, but we don't see her face, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but Andrew Wyeth is the son of N.C. Wyeth, who was a painter that struggled with this idea of the commercial world versus being an artist, because he did a lot of things that got used for, like, billboards and for inserts into famous
sounds like
books,
Warhol,
but it's pre that, because it was like Treasure Island. He he did like all of the like. If you look at an old copy of Treasure Island, and this is for people, books, they were before these phone things. I didn't even know what a podcast was back then. No, but and you have like that little parchment thing, and then so he did a lot of these beautiful illustrations in famous books, and he started making a lot of money as a commercial painter, but he was really an artist, and then he had all these kids that were artists too, and so they all have these different dynamics and how he treats them and how he deals with his own, like, am I good, am I bad, am I good, am I bad,
Wow, that would be a fascinating story to tell. Oh my gosh. Well, let's, we're going to have to get together again because I want to explore all of these stories a little bit deeper with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been wonderful. Wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time today to come on the show, drink some wine with us, tell us so much about your thoughts and your activities, and what a joy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you guys are so generous to have me and let me go forever.
Well, you have a lot to say. That's very fascinating, interesting, and we really love your project. And I look forward to seeing everything else that spins out of this. So,
and just keep us posted on where it can be seen next, things of that nature, and we'll always be sure to share it on our podcast, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of stuff. We'll definitely do that.
Awesome.
Because I think all of our listeners just cannot wait to see me in that one scene. I know.
Well, you're in two scenes.
You are very visible.
I'm in two scenes.
Yeah. You would be in what we call in New York a featured extra, for sure.
Yes.
I didn't even ask the people to be on my podcast. I didn't know it was going to happen.
Close to the leads.
Yeah.
Very true.
It's all about positioning.
It is. It is. Yep.
Gotta be front of line.
Some other time I'll have to tell you about some Robin Williams stories and people that I've been next to.
He was a lovely man. Like, I met him once. I didn't know him personally, but I met him and I found him to be absolutely lovely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
that's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely. Please come back. While you still have a little bit of a breathing break
before things get
even more crazy. But come back and thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing us together.
Yes. I'm so happy. That's what makes me really happy.
And Cliterally Speaking the podcast.
And all of our listeners out there.
I felt a little something when you said that.
It must be the wine making me feel so good, breaking free. So, well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And for those of you out there listening, please be sure to subscribe, like us, make a review. That's the way people can hear about us and share us with your friends. Follow us on all of our socials.
Yeah.
Instagram.
All that
Facebook.
Jazz. Yeah.
Twitter.
Tell us what you think.
There's probably another one. Oh, and leave us a message
on our comment line. Yes, it can be anything from a question to an addition, a thought that you had while you were listening. You're like wanting to chime in. I have several friends that say, I just talk back the whole time while I'm listening to one of the shows. Well, guess what? We have a comment line you can actually call.
Yes, you can give us a call at 812-727-0794. Visit our website, cliterallyspeakingpodcast.com. You can send us emails as well off of the website. Everything that you can possibly want to know about us is right there at your fingertips on your phone. But thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Catherine. It's been really lovely.
Yeah, cheers.
Yay.
The duck and truffle.
I want to try that.